Hello chess family, it's me National Master Jesse James, and today we're going over a very fun game I got to play against a Grandmaster in the English Opening. Now I'm not playing the English as the white side, I am actually playing it from the black side, and I got very good attacking chances by playing what's called a Reverse Grand Prix attack. And well, in this one I actually got 2 double exclams, so it was a very fun game, very exciting because it was opposite side castling, meaning we're going to be attacking each other relentlessly. So let's get to it. Let's start from the beginning. In this game, my opponent starts off with c4, the English opening. This is a very, very strong opening and a very strong system. In fact, a lot of people have a hard time with it because they don't really know the system very well. Like I said, whenever they play pawn c4, I like to treat it like a reverse Sicilian and play the Grand Prix. So I'll go ahead and play pawn to e5. Here we go. They go ahead and play knight c3. I play knight to c6. This is done to stop pawn to d4 from getting played, which is one of the ways that white can achieve a very good game in the reverse Sicilian. And here they went ahead and played g3. This is just like a standard book move right here. And here, well, there's 2 big moves here to play. Here you can either bring your bishop over to c5, which looks like a very good diagonal to attack on f2, or you can play the positional move bishop to b4 to try and give him double pawns and attack the knight. Here I like to play the idea of bishop to b4. I like this move a lot more than the bishop to c5 moves, just because if you do play bishop c5, white can use a very good idea and push the pawns forward and harass this bishop. This bishop looks great because it is attacking the weakest pawn f2, but like I said, I've had problems with this, so well, I just go ahead and play bishop b4, and when they allow me, I snack attack and take this knight and give them those double pawns. A lot of times you put your pawns on the dark squares, so this already restricts the bishop quite a bit. My opponent went ahead and played bishop g2, saying, well, if you want to trade and give me the bishop pair and you know, give me some double pawns, you're more than welcome to. I obliged. Here we go. Bishop takes on c3. Here, d takes on c3, a good move. Typically, you would think it'd be good to take back toward the center, but this move has a lot of good ideas since it's going to let the bishop out. And a lot of times in these openings, the bishop will actually trade off for this knight. So I'll go ahead and keep playing. Here we go. Pawn to d6. e4 gets played, another very interesting looking move here. It doesn't make sense why you would try to block your bishop, but this is actually mainline theory here. And this is actually very common for a lot of the English. You try to keep the position closed, meaning you don't want pawn trades. And with this pawn move, it's really clamping down on a lot of key squares here, d5 and f5. Here in this opening, you don't put your knight to f6 like many people think, but here the idea is to bring your knight to e7. And this is important because we want to play a fast f5. Like I said, this is actually an aggressive way to play against the English. And, well, we're going to play f5, f4, and try to go for a kingside attack. Here, h3 got played. An interesting move. And, you know, if they allow me, I do love to play bishop g4 in these lines, so h3 is going to prevent that. But here, well, I'm going to go ahead and play it now, bishop to e6. A free developing move as this attacks the pawn. But the real idea is I'm going to be bringing my queen up to d7. And you'll see in a little bit why that's important. Here, white plays b3, a good move. You know, there's no need to drop any pawns if not needed. And like I said, I go ahead and play queen to d7 here as fast as possible. Now, this is already kind of hard for white to deal with because they're going to have to do one of 2 things. Either they're going to go ahead and play knight e2, and it's really hard for them to castle because, well, let's just say I castle kingside. They cannot castle so fast because this leaves the h3 pawn hanging. So they have to figure out what to do with this. And, you know, the different ways to problem solve this are not really great. If they play pawn h4, well, now they go ahead and give me this square. I can bring my bishop to g4. You can see the computer already doesn't like this too much. Yeah, just not one of the best things to play here. So here they have to come up with an idea. And, well, they continue on because, well, you don't have to figure this out right away. They went ahead and played bishop to e3. And bishop e3 is a good move, and I can already see an idea that my opponent had in mind. Let's go ahead and castle. I've got no problems to castle, so I want to castle as soon as possible. Now that I'm castled, I can go ahead and start for my kingside attack because, well, I'm thinking that they're going to be castling kingside, so, well, I might as well start the attack as soon as possible. Here they play queen d2, and this is when I thought, you know what, maybe they will not be castling this game, or maybe they'll even think about castling queenside. Typically, this is not a very good idea because the pawns are pushed up already. And you might be saying, well, why is that a problem? Well, anytime these pawns are pushed up, especially in front of your king, it's faster for the pawns to make trades. And this is a very common idea whenever you are doing offside castling. You try and trade off the pawns and get the rooks behind them so that you can have your rooks ready to attack your opponent's king. You know, typically you don't do this when the kings are on the same side because your king is right behind the pawns. But as opposite side castling, this is a very typical idea. Like I said, I wasn't sure if they're going to do this just yet. So let's continue with the plan. Here we go, pawn to f5. A few good moves. It lets the rook into the game. Maybe a rook lift. Maybe I'll play pawn f4 to try and trap the bishop. Maybe I'll try and take on e4 and just open up lines. To attack your opponent's king, you need open files and diagonals. Here my opponent went ahead and played pawn f3. An interesting idea, but definitely does not look to impress. It does keep the pawn defended, but yeah, just not a move I would be expecting. Here I kind of sensed that they were thinking about castling queenside, so I went ahead and tried to dissuade them. I definitely would prefer them to castle kingside, as I have really good attacking chances there. So here, to try to put pressure on the pawns, I went ahead and played a5. And here, that's the idea I was talking to you guys earlier about. I want to play a4 and make a pawn trade, and then you can see that my rook is opened up. My opponent definitely saw this idea and played pawn to a4. You can see with this very strong pawn move, it stops me from playing a4, and the pawn structure is actually quite solid. I went ahead and played pawn b6, keeping my pawn structure very solid here. You can see here that if I did have my dark square bishop, it would be quite bad here. So it's a very good idea I traded off right away. And here my opponent went for it. They castled queenside. Now I won't say this is the easiest way to win, but there's definitely good attacking chances here for black. But playing against a grandmaster, there's very good chances I might make a mistake or they might just outplay me. The grandmaster is one of the strongest players in the world. And here I went ahead and played knight g6. It's kind of hard to find good squares for these knights, but the idea here of knight to g6, the computer didn't like it so much, is to go ahead and play pawn to f4. And what's this move do? It's going to go ahead and try to create a backwards pawn of f3. Here my opponent went ahead and played pawn to h4. I mean, this move makes sense for them definitely. They're trying to push their pawns forward and try and open up the h-file so that the rook can then attack me. But here, they let me do it. I went ahead and played pawn f4. Here I'm able to create a weakness of the pawn, but then also I'm going to create a very good outpost for my knight. Taking here was a move they could play, although, I wouldn't say it's the best move. So they went ahead and just played bishop f2. They want to try and open up the g and f files, not particularly the f file for them. Here I went ahead and took because I wanted to make sure that my rook was going to be putting pressure on the f-pawn. Bishop takes on g3, and here my knight jumps to a very good spot, knight to f4. And you can see here that this bishop is not looking too good here. My opponent made a good move here. They went ahead and played bishop f1. They did not want to lose the bishop. This bishop is going to be one of the main protectors of the f-pawn, so why would they want to lose it? And here I finally saw the idea. I came up with a plan to actually attack this pawn structure. It's not so simple, but here I go. I went ahead and played queen to f7. Again, the computer doesn't like this, but here I'm looking very far ahead. Here, knight to e2 gets played. Here, white wants to go ahead and trade off this beautiful knight because this is definitely one of my best pieces on the board. And so they want to push the pawn forward, so they got to get rid of this knight. Here I went ahead and played knight h5. I don't make the trade so easy. Now the queen's attacking the pawn, and the knight's attacking the bishop. Since white does have the bishop pair here, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and trade it off. Here, bishop g2 gets played. They can't lose a pawn, at least for no good reason. And here I went ahead and played knight to d8. Now this is a very far advanced idea, which actually will lead to my brilliant move that's coming up. Here, can you figure out what is the plan of knight to d8? I'll give you a hint. It's going to try to attack this pawn structure. All right, if you haven't already, go and give us that like and subscribe. Remember, liking this video is going to share this with more chess players. Were you able to figure it out? Like I said, the computer does not like this very much, but I think this is a very good move. Here, the knight is going to b7, and then it's going to go to c5. As you can see here, it's going to put pressure on b3, and there's lots of good ideas about sacrificing, and now you see that I can play knight takes b3. Even if the king takes back, bishop takes on c4, and so I can try to open up the files and diagonals to this king. Here, I'm already thinking about my kingside attack, and this will happen very nicely very soon. Here, my opponent went ahead and played rook over to g1. I mean, it makes sense. They see that the open file is over here on the g file, so they're putting the rook opposite of it. Here comes my knight to b7. Bishop to f2. They saw the idea of the knight jumping to c5, so they're trying to stop this. Here I saw that it actually is not very good if they take, because I can just take back with my b-pawn, and that's what happened. I played knight c5, threatening to take on b3, and here they did not like this, and they went ahead and played bishop takes on c5. I was very happy. B takes c5. Now I have the open b file here, and my opponent played king c2, makes sense. Here the king is already defending the weak pawn here on b3. Here I go. Rook A to B8. You can see that I've done a good job by putting pressure over here. And my opponent just did not believe me, so they went ahead and played Queen to E3. Here I think they were trying to prepare to move the queen over to the king side to go for the attack. But now I was able to find my first brilliant of the game. It is black to move. What do you play here? Believe it or not, the game ends quite fast now. The only thing stopping me from attacking is this pawn mass over here. And, well, my queen doesn't really have access to it. So it's time to sacrifice. Here we go. Bishop takes on c4. A brilliant move here. It goes from a decent position to a negative 0.4. And, yep, I'm very happy now. Of course, they can take back. And if they don't, well, they'll just be losing. So, pawn takes. Queen takes. And now I have a very good attacking position. Queen takes on a4 is being threatened. Queen over to a4, queen b3 check. Even queen's attacking the knight over here. Like I said, the game ends quite fast here as there's just really no good way to defend. This king is too vulnerable. Knight to c1 gets played. It's a very nice try. He was able to go ahead and defend two of the critical squares that I was able to penetrate on, which is a2 and b3. But unfortunately, a4 is still left open. So queen takes on a4 check. King over to d3. And here the king is already running out of squares here. And here, whenever you see your opponent's running out of squares, try to take away as many of the escape squares as possible. The main escape square here that I'm worried about is e2. If the king can get over here, I definitely would have a harder time trying to checkmate them. So it's black to move. What do you play here? Here I was very happy to find the best move in this position. What do you play? Here I know people are playing knight f4 check, which is a good move, but the king can go to d2, maybe go to e1. Again, trying to make its way around over here so it can be defended. Here, we can take away all the squares and play rook over to b2. And now you can see that all these squares are taken away. Queen c2 is almost checkmate because the king has the escape square to c4 here. But here, I have a checkmating move that I saw that I was very excited about playing. Here, my opponent played queen to g5. It's less about moving the queen away over to attack on the king side, but more about giving the king an escape square over to e3. Believe it or not, it is now going to be a forced checkmate. Here, I went ahead and played the first move. Let's bring that second piece into the game. Knight to f4 check. Here, I mean, in case they want to sacrifice their queen, but even if they do, they still lose. You can go ahead and move the king over. And now it was forced checkmate in 2 moves. What do you play here? Black to move. All right, hopefully you push pause and try to figure it out. Here we get a very nice, brilliant move here with the queen sacrifice. Who figured this one out? You get to play queen to d4, double exclam, check and mate. Wait a second, it's not checkmate. The pawn can just take. Here I already had calculated that idea. If the pawn takes, it's okay. Here you get to play pawn takes over here for check and mate. And this is actually how I got to finish the game. Here the rook is controlling the second rank. The knight's controlling over here on d3. And of course the pawn comes in to checkmate the king on e3. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this. Remember, this was a very fun game demonstrating the power of playing the Grand Prix reversed against the English. Remember that I like to play this bishop before I did, try to trade off the bishop for the knight because it's going to give you an imbalance in the game, which is what you need whenever you're trying to attack. Also, I don't like the bishop just because it gets harassed by all the pawns. And also, I put my pawn structure on the dark square, so the bishop usually just gets into the way anyways. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you in the next video.